We've made it to episode 2 of the Elitist Effect, okay? You guys just supported the hell out of episode 1, where we talked about Ronda Rousey and her comments about fans being ungrateful, as well as the Revival being released, CM Punk saying that empty arena wrestling's horrible. We addressed all of that. You guys supported the hell out of that video. Nearly 300 views, something like 20 likes, okay? Comments, engagement was really good, so you guys like the Elitist Effect. Here, we're back for episode 2. Now, what we're doing for episode 2 is this one today, part 1. It is going to be going up before SmackDown. So you guys get to see this before SmackDown. This one is not real. It's not a news kind of like updated news podcast. This one's more of an opinion piece, so to speak. You guys get to hear me kind of rip apart, but really analyze the women's evolution in the WWE. It's a very controversial topic. It's something that a lot of people have strong opinions on. So I feel like I want to give this a whole dedicated podcast. The analysis in this video, it's some of the best I've done. It's not just like a 10 to 12 minute kind of rant video or like a review. This is really, it's like a half an hour long dissection of this women's evolution, talking about exposing it. So that's what you've got to look forward to today. Part 2 will be about if there's any more releases coming up for a second wave or third wave of releases. That'll be part 2. That'll be out around this time tomorrow. So look out for the part 2. If there's no second or third wave of releases, then what it'll be is it'll just be a kind of a news roundup, which won't be as interesting. But then again, it'll still be another Elitist Effect. So that's what you guys have to look forward to. Once again, thanks for supporting episode 1. Here's episode 2, part 1. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. It's a pretty damn good rant dissection, if I can say so myself. So without further ado, hope you guys enjoy. If you've watched WWE or followed it in any capacity these past few years, one of the main things you'll think about that'll come to mind is the women's evolution, or the women's revolution. That'll be one of the main things that comes to the top of your head. And here today, I'm going to call it out for what it really is and what it's been, okay? But before I do that, first I feel the need to throw in a disclaimer, okay? This video is strictly based on WWE and specifically their depiction of women on these scripted, predetermined TV shows, okay? It's not some attack on these women who play the characters, okay? And it's not some political commentary about feminism, okay? So just to get that in there. Also, I'm sure you guys won't do this because my audience is actually pretty respectful and stuff, but don't be throwing around just hateful, sexist stuff in the comment section, okay? I don't feel the need to read through that. So without further ado, got that out of the way. So let's start with the positives of this women's revolution, evolution, whatever. For one, the alternate role models and new representation of different women for little girls to look up to. That's really good. Nothing bad to say about that. Your Nia Jaxes, your Becky Lynch, Asuka, Sonya Deville, the real diversity of women for young girls and whatnot to look up to. And building off of that, the chance of This Is Hope, okay? There's nothing I can say to discount that. Having WWE perform in Dubai or having them perform in Saudi Arabia and having chance of This Is Hope, that's awesome for everyone. Okay, my issue with anything to do with that comes from how WWE portray that and market that, but more on that later. So This Is Hope chance, that's a positive, that's awesome. But really the truth of the matter is that when it comes to WWE programming, here's the thing. And look, it comes down to the fact that women shouldn't be held to a different standard than men. And this feels like it's going to get to a sexism debate. No, anyway, pretty much, just because they're women doesn't mean that I or you as fans automatically care or feel obligated to be interested. And if you do, it just shouldn't be that way, okay? Good wrestling storytelling is good wrestling storytelling. And that's what makes me, and I presume most of you as fans, care, okay? Just look for the women at Becky Lynch, the path to WrestleMania 35. From the moment Nia Jax botched and punched her in the face, broke her nose legit, and Becky Lynch became a cult figure. So then Becky's road to WrestleMania, where she won the Rumble after not being an entry officially, and then, she had the stuff where Charlotte took her spot, then Becky came back injured from the suspension and whatnot. All of that was good, interesting wrestling storytelling. And that's what I mean for, good wrestling storytelling. But then there's just been literally none of that in the year and a bit since, and before that Becky Lynch thing, there was basically no good storytelling in women's wrestling to begin with. Okay, Now, this lack of storylines is not just a women's thing. This isn't just a women's issue. This is a WWE-wide problem, okay? Storylines, creativity, it's abysmal, okay? They don't give us anything, so it pisses you off. But nevertheless, don't just give us garbage with no storyline or genuine reason to care, like you've been doing for ages now with women, and expect us to care just because you label it with the first time women ever do X, or, this is the women's first time doing this, or the first women's this, or the first women's that. Like, just giving it a label and making it sound historic, so you can market it to the mainstream for your agenda, your political, propaganda. Just by doing that doesn't make it good, okay? And the fact that we've had to listen to that for years and years, it's downright nauseating, okay? And I'm sure you as fans, when you're watching these abysmal Raw and SmackDown shows in the past few years, you're sick of hearing, oh, it's the first time the women have ever done this, the first time the women have ever done that. Okay, cool, it's a first, but as I'll get to later, just because they're women doesn't make it an evolution because they're doing all the things the men do. There's more to an evolution than just, the men do Hell in a Cell, we'll make the women do it too. So that's that point there. Additionally, here's another big point. I don't know about you guys, but at the end of the day, when I think about women's revolution in WWE, who do you think about when you think women's revolution in WWE? I'll give this a few seconds to fester. Who do you think about, women revolution WWE? Personally, the first one I think of is Paige. That's who I think of. I think of AJ Lee, okay? Combating that period of total divas back in 2013 where the Bella Twins, and Eva Marie, Natalia, bloody JoJo, they're all total divas. And AJ Lee stood up to that. Like, I think of AJ Lee, Paige, she was much the same. She stood up to the total divas. Paige was the anti-diva. That was her thing. And then I think of Sasha Banks as someone who's a leader in the women's revolution. And in the past couple of years, I've thought of Ronda Rousey, purely because of Ronda Rousey's mainstream star power. Ronda elevates the women's divisions and revolution, so it actually feels more special. So when Ronda's there, it feels more important. So when I think women's revolution, I think AJ, Paige, Sasha Banks, and Ronda Rousey. But that's not what the WWE wants you to think. World Wrestling Entertainment, Vince McMahon, what they want you to think when it comes to the women's revolution, the women's evolution, they want you to think Charlotte Flair, they want you to think Becky Lynch, and they want you to think Charlotte Flair, and they want you to think Becky Lynch, and they want you to think Charlotte Flair. You get my point, okay? You get my point. They want you to think about Charlotte primarily and then Becky Lynch. That's who they want you to think about in this revolution. But at the end of the day, the whole revolution can really just boil down to a foolproof way of bolstering Charlotte's resume so that by the time she retires, it'll look better than her dad's, it'll look better than Hogan's, it'll look better than everyone in WWE history, because Charlotte Flair would have been involved in all of these first time ever, okay? Because this is the thing. When you look at Charlotte Flair's resume, I don't have it in front of me, I haven't got it written down, but this is just off the top of my head. You list off everything she's done. She'll end up being probably a 21-time women's champion, probably like a 9-time Raw champion, a 9-time SmackDown champion, a 3-time NXT champion, probably a multi-time Royal Rumble winner. She'll have been the first women's Hell in a Cell match, first women's Money in the Bank match, I think, the first women's TLC match, the first women's, main event at WrestleMania, the first this, the first that. You get my point, okay? The whole revolution is just a foolproof way to bolster Charlotte's resume and mask it in this whole women's evolution. But in reality, it's just nepotism for Charlotte because she's a Flair and she's an android, so you have to push her. Now, I made a whole video about Charlotte and the whole Charlotte agenda like a couple months back, so if you want to hear more about my take on Charlotte, go watch that. But it's just the whole thing with the women's revolution, it's a big just ploy to push Charlotte some more. So, with that being said, I'll move on to something else. I'll look at pro wrestling, the women's pro wrestling as a whole, okay? Women in pro wrestling either needs to be one or two things, and this is going to sound more political because it pretty much is. You've either got your far, far right, your Attitude Era, your late 90s, the raunchy, like your bikini contests, where you've got like Jerry Lawler and, doing the bikini contests and whatnot, or you've got captivating storylines with outstanding matches. Now, per, how time has changed and how society and culture has changed, it's completely understandable that we've moved to the latter of those two options, okay? Now it's about, quote-unquote, captivating storylines with outstanding matches. But WWE have just stuffed that up because, as I mentioned earlier, WWE, poor creative, bad booking. All of that stuff has made it so that this captivating storylines, outstanding matches, which should be at the forefront of this evolution, is not there, okay? Because when it comes to women's wrestling in the past literally year, outside of Becky and Sasha Banks inside Hell in a Cell, I can't think of one women's match that I think, damn, I have to go see that now. Like one women's storyline that I think, damn, that was good. And I don't mean like Mandy Rose and Otis because Mandy's a woman. I don't mean that. I mean like a women's division storyline. Like Becky Lynch, Shayna Baszler. Who cares? That's the thing with most of these women's storylines. Who really is invested? Who cares? Did WWE give you enough captivating reason to care? No. Okay. So as I said, women's pro wrestling, it's either one of two things. Your far-right, attitude era, raunchy bikini contests, or it's captivating storylines pushing a women's feminist narrative on the left. So it's one of those two. Naturally, because of mainstream and how the mainstream media try and push everyone to the left, naturally, WWE gone down the avenue of the women empowerment, the female, personification and, image of women as, superstars and role models, and that's all cool. Once again, I'm not saying for a second that WWE has to be just bikini contests and, the only women we should see are Sable and Jacqueline. Like, that's not what this is. I'm not saying we need to see Becky Lynch doing bikini contests every week. That's not what this is. What I'm saying is that if WWE are going down, or they have gone down this avenue with captivating storylines, aim for more matches and women enhancement and women empowerment, it's got to be cool, okay? Which I'm totally fine with. I'm totally fine with them doing that, but they have to do it well. And WWE, they haven't, okay? And as I've said, times have changed. I no longer expect, nor I think it's not socially acceptable to have someone like Jacqueline in the middle of the ring, literally wearing a piece of string, as Jerry Lawler standing behind her, shouting, "Ah! Ah!" Like, that's not what pro wrestling should be, okay? So, in that regard, WWE, they failed at either option. Now, I must say this as well, WWE women from 2016 through 2020 are far more captivating than whatever was happening in 2008 to 2012. Okay, before AJ Lee really became prevalent, and after Trish and Lita left, that whole time period was just a train wreck. You remember the WrestleMania 25 Women's Battle Royal featuring the legends of women's wrestling? And remember who won that Women's Battle Royal at WrestleMania 25? Some of you might, the ones who've watched WrestleMania 25, the ones who know this stuff. Who won the WrestleMania 25 Women's Battle Royal? I'll give this a second to fester. Was it Trish? Was it Lita? Was it, I don't know, take your pick. Was it, I don't know, Molly Holly? Was it Jacqueline? Was it Sable? It was Santino Marella wearing a tutu, wearing a dress and like a Miss America kind of sash. It was Santino Marella. Yeah, so that sums up the time period from 2008 to 2012. And literally, I was just watching Kelly and Beth Phoenix every week for the Divas title for 15 months with Eve Torres and Lay Cool running around. That was terrible. That sucked, okay? I'm happy WWE have moved on from that because that had no identity. It wasn't the Attitude Era where it was just raunched to the max, but it wasn't like Becky Lynch 2018, 2019 captivating storytelling. It was just nothing. So I'm glad in that regard that we've now got this good matches with more women who can actually wrestle matches. I guess that helps. And as I said, Paige and AJ Lee earlier in the video, they're both awesome. Total divas. That was a complete joke. And it's still going, is it? They're like 9 seasons in. I went on the WWE Network the other day and saw they've done like 10 seasons, 9 seasons of the show. I'm thinking to myself, how? There's like 3 bloody seasons of Total Bellas. Miz and Maurice have a reality show. Like, this whole reality TV BS. Like, it's so like... it's so contradictory that you go from, the women's evolution, Paige, Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, we've got, Sasha Banks, we've got Charlotte, we've got all these women who can wrestle and they won't insult your intelligence by being divas. Oh, but here we have a reality show which is used to promote our WWE series called Total Divas and Total Bellas. So, yeah, anyway. And as I said, I'll keep going here. One of my main big issues with the women's agenda, okay, one of my main big issues with women's agenda is that it's such a blatant attempt for WWE, here we go, this is a great quote here, for WWE to disregard quality of programming in order to shoehorn in an agenda so that they can appeal to sponsors and attain ESPN and other mainstream headlines. Okay, that should be pretty easy to understand, okay? WWE sacrifice good storytelling, they sacrifice engaging storylines, they sacrifice, things worth watching for the weekly viewer, the hardcore viewer, sacrifice all that, but you've got to make sure that you do your first ever women's this, first ever women's that, women this, women that. That's what it's got to be. Even though the week-to-week viewer of the product is just bored out of their brain watching this, okay, that's not a problem to WWE. Even though to fans like me or fans like you, it's just brutal to watch. You see, there's nothing women's television week after week. Then you get told, you have to love the women have to, be on this headline, that headline, women in the mainstream. And don't get me wrong, some of these women's firsts are cool. I really like them. For example, women competing in Saudi Arabia. Something like that's genuinely, pretty cool. I'm nothing bad to say about that. Granted, actually, I kind of do. The way WWE pushed that, I get it. It's historic. It's a first time ever in that country. But you'd think it was the most cataclysmic event that WWE did, okay? The way they pushed women competing in Saudi Arabia, the way they pushed, literally, here's the thing. It was, a random Natalya vs. Lacey Evans match with no story at one of the Saudi shows, but WWE made it seem like this cataclysmic event, like something like that. Okay, women competing in Saudi Arabia, that's cool. The women's only pay-per-view Evolution, which has been on the screen for a bunch of this video, the pay-per-view poster, Evolution, that was a cool exhibition one-off event. That was all cool. And then women main eventing at WrestleMania. Last year, WrestleMania 35, I was fine with women main eventing because I didn't know what else in that show could have main evented, really. I mean, Triple H and Batista in 2019, do you want a main event with them? I mean, I guess you could, but given the role Becky Lynch was on with the women, I guess that's probably the good main event avenue. Granted, you could go on Daniel Bryan, Kofi Kingston, but I don't know. Just let the women main event in this situation, I guess. But anyway, so when it comes to this, as I said, it's just all about cool firsts. But WWE is so focused on, forcing that down your throat. It just becomes frustrating for us as viewers. As I've said a couple of times now, you're watching the WWE, they don't care about the week-to-week storylines that in this avenue that they're supposed to be going down, okay? WWE, as I said earlier in the video, justifiably so. They deviated away from Jerry Lawler screaming as Jacqueline's wearing nothing in the middle of the ring. They went in the opposite direction to women empowerment, pro-feminism, the women's agenda. They went down that avenue. All cool, as I said. But the fact that you're sacrificing all of your TV storylines, all of your, engagement, just so that you can put women in these first-time evers and tout it to the mainstream and try and make yourself seem like you're doing something incredible, even though the week-to-week product sucks and the underlying theme of the agenda is just basically Charlotte Flair. It's just, you see what I mean here? Hopefully I explained it clear enough there. That should be pretty concise. And I've got a few more points to make with this. I'm going to rehash some things I've said and just really emphasize this because when it comes to women's revolution, as I've said, earlier in the video, I mentioned this once or twice. It's more than just having the women do what the men do, okay? There's more to an evolution than that, okay? This evolution, when it started, should have been all about storytelling and, great in-ring matches, or the best matches you can have, okay? That's what the women's evolution should be about. That's what I think it should be about. But what it became, as I said, forget storytelling and good viewing. It became, women are doing Money in the Bank. Women are doing Hell in a Cell. Women are doing TLC. Women can do Extreme Rules. Women can do a Royal Rumble. Women can do Elimination Chamber matches. Okay? That doesn't constitute a revolution, WWE. You've got to understand that. Okay? Just because you're having the women do what the men do, there's more to revolution than that. Okay? And some of these matches as well, you look at this list. Women's Money in the Bank. Have we seen one women's Money in the Bank match that you think, damn, I have to go back and watch that? No, you haven't. Because the fact of the matter is, the women's Money in the Bank matches are fine, but women just, the way women wrestle, it's not your Ricochets, your Zigglers, your Kofi Kingstons. I made this point in the Money in the Bank 2019 review. It's not your Ricochets, Zigglers, Kingstons, Adrian Neville's, Park, all these guys, Finn Balor, Mustafa Ali. Like, women aren't made to be these, male spot monkeys who can take these brutal ladder bumps, okay? Granted, we've seen a couple of cool spots in women's ladder matches over the years, in the past few years, but it's not the same as seeing Ricochet do some 750 planche a avalanche moonsault off the top of a 20-foot high ladder. It's not the same thing. You get my point. So women's Money in the Bank, I don't care about it. Women's Hell in a Cell, that one I guess is fine. Okay, Becky and Sasha had an incredible Hell in a Cell match, but this is the thing. Hell in a Cell, I associate, and a lot of you guys associate Hell in a Cell with hardcore, end of a feud, usually mostly blood. And if you're not going to have women be bleeding, then it doesn't feel like Hell in a Cell. And granted, that's not just a women's thing. Hell in a Cell in the past few years has been ruined just as a result of how they've booked Hell in a Cell, and more on Hell in a Cell later in the year. But, jeez, it's a disaster. You look at, like, the women's TLC match. There was Asuka, Charlotte, and Becky at TLC 2018. That was great. So, like, a TLC match, that works. You can use the tables, the chairs, the ladders as well. It's not purely just about, ladder bumps. So that one works. Women's Royal Rumble, I'm cool with that. The women should have a Rumble. Granted, it makes the Rumble pay-per-view harder to watch and more drawn out. But the Rumble matches are fun. Get all the women used to know on the show. That's cool. Women's chamber matches, So that's first the thing with the women's matches. And then moving on with that, literally, this Revolution, and like what made the Revolution was back in 2018, okay? Here's my thing. Now, this Women's Revolution, it felt like for years, 2016, what was the Revolution really? On Raw, it was Sasha and Charlotte playing hot potato with the title 100 times. On SmackDown, it was a bunch of women like Becky Lynch, I remember. Alexa Bliss was there. I think Naomi, the Land of Opportunity. So that was Raw and SmackDown. 2017, what was, 2017? Naomi won the SmackDown Women's title. Who held the Raw one? Alexa Bliss. We got Alexa Bliss versus Bayley. Just these crap storylines, nothing memorable. Hit 2018, Charlotte and Asuka at WrestleMania. What else? What was Raw? Nia Jax and Alexa Bliss in the bullying storyline. So you get this whole women's revolution where you get no captivating, memorable storylines for years and years, and then you get Ronda Rousey coming in. Okay, what made this revolution a revolution to me, as I said earlier in the video with Ronda Rousey being someone I associate with this revolution, is Ronda Rousey coming in, feeling like a big deal, feeling like the most captivating part of the company, because by that point, the main event scene for the men, Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, we'd seen that to death. We didn't care for Braun Strowman as much as we used to. Samoa Joe was there. And who was on SmackDown? 2018 SmackDown. That was what? Daniel Bryan was coming back, but not in a prominent role. AJ Styles, Jinder Mahal, Kevin Owens. Like, no one cared about the men, so you had the women. Ronda Rousey was coming in. It was cool. It was fresh. It was exciting. Then you mixed that with Becky Lynch's surge of momentum with Asuka and Charlotte on SmackDown. So 2018, late 2018 for the women, it felt really good. Okay, the rest of the women's division, outside of those women, especially Ronda, and then Becky, and then Asuka and Charlotte, the rest of the women's division was bad. Okay, no one cared about the Riot Squad beating up Natalya because Natalia's dad died. That was the storyline. Okay, literally, Riot Squad versus Natalya, Ember Moon was just there. You had, like, all these other women, Nia Jax, Tamina, Naomi, Bayley, Sasha, they were like doing nothing. So you get that, and then I think to myself, as I said, I'll recap this once again. The Women's Revolution, 2016 to 2018, what did we get? We got Alexa Bliss holding multiple Raw and SmackDown women's titles, despite the fact that she added nothing to the show. Okay, this is my thing with Alexa Bliss. A lot of people just love Alexa Bliss because, oh, she's hot, man. But you don't dislike Bliss. And people get all butthurt when you say that Alexa Bliss can't wrestle, she can't cut a good promo, and she's not good at anything, really. I mean, literally, she missed a year, not a year, she missed like a bunch of action at the end of last year to get enhancements, and then she came back and she was an even worse wrestler. I don't see how that constitutes someone who you should love, and someone who's like a 6-time women's champion. I don't get it, okay? And then you look at something like Sasha Banks. I mentioned the hot potato thing with Charlotte Flair, okay? Sasha Banks, who's one of the cornerstones of this revolution, what's she done? Like, I'm a big Sasha Banks fan. I know a couple of you are really big Sasha Banks fans. But what's Sasha Banks really done in the scheme of things because of WWE? It's not her fault. It's all WWE in their booking. Because it's a Charlotte Flair and a Becky Lynch revolution, what have they done? Sasha Banks and Charlotte Flair played hot potato with the women's title for a couple of months in 2016. So now Sasha's still a 3 or 4-time women's champion, and Charlotte's like an 11-time champion. And speaking of Charlotte Flair, you look at someone like Asuka. Asuka's undefeated streak, 15 days long, rolls into WrestleMania 34, Charlotte beats her. Just get a first time ever Asuka lost at the hands of Charlotte, okay? That's not the first time on Charlotte's resume. Charlotte Flair has the first defeat of Asuka in WWE on her resume, okay? Or I look at someone like Carmella. Carmella in the Women's Revolution, what year was it, 2018? When Carmella held the SmackDown Women's title for months and months, because she cashed in and she had, the split from Ellsworth, and Carmella beat Asuka on SmackDown. Just a disaster, okay? Literally, all of these creative blemishes have been tarnished and have tarnished the Women's Revolution as a whole, okay? These creative blunders have tarnished what could have been a great revolution. If this revolution was solely about storytelling and engaging characters, okay? If they really took Sasha Banks' character as the boss and made it feel larger than life and feel super engaging and had her be a top star in the company, that's one way you could have done the revolution. Okay, if you actually capitalized off the back of Becky Lynch's momentum in 2019 and didn't book her against Lacey Evans and then Baron Corbin, and then, a random match versus Natalya for the first 4 months of her reign, killing off all her momentum, and now she feels not special at all. Okay, if you actually capitalize on Becky Lynch, if you have Sasha Banks feel like a big star, if Bayley's gimmick for this whole revolution wasn't just, oh, I'm a hugger, guys, I'm a hugger, and then you have all these grown men wearing, these shirts saying, I'm a hugger, attending WWE shows crying because Bayley's near them. If you actually have Bayley have a character that's not, I'm a hugger, and then Charlotte Flair, what's her character? I'm the queen. That's her character. Okay. How about you cut a promo that isn't in an android tone, clown? So you have all these women, and then outside of, Ronda Rousey being Ronda Rousey, no one feels special, because that's the way they've made everyone feel. Okay, and then the women, as I mentioned before, your Asukas, your Carmellas, your Alexa Bliss, they've just stuffed them all up. So, also, I have to say with this, I'll run over this situation again, okay? The women were the best thing on the show back in 2018 and 2019, so end of 2018, early 2019, but I need to bring something up as well. Was that because the women were genuinely doing, great stuff? Or was it because WWE Raw, especially, and also SmackDown, at the end of 2018 and early 2019, were producing some of the worst programs this company has ever seen? I defer you to the December 3rd, 2018 Monday Night Raw. Okay, that was on the worst Raw episodes ever. It was equally as bad as the infamously horrible November 26, 2018 episode. And that December 3rd, 2018 episode was headlined by a full opening hour of women, not full hour, but 45 minutes to open the show of women, and a main event of Ronda Rousey and Ember Moon versus Nia Jackson Tamina. Okay, that was your headlining stuff in a time when the show was as bad as it's ever been. Okay, so in that regard, when you look at the women, it shouldn't just be, oh, well, they were the best thing on the show in 2018, 2019. There is that underlying caveat, though, that the fact that the show was that bad, that the women being half interesting because of Ronda and Becky Lynch, that automatically makes them better than anything on the show. That's how bad the company was in 2018, okay? But yeah, that being said, I'll look on a positive note. NXT, okay? NXT has smashed everything out of the park for years. They really have. NXT, when you look at where they were with the Four Horsewomen, 2014, 2015, then WWE, Vince McMahon, literally rip away Sasha, Becky, and Charlotte to the main roster. They do Team PCB, Team Bad, Team Bellas, which was a train wreck disaster. So they do that. Then you're left in NXT with what for your women's division? Who's your women's division in NXT? Bayley? I think, was Emma there at the time? Oh, no, Emma wasn't there. No, it was Bayley and who? Who was in the women's division in that time? So I think Bayley, Nia Jax, Asuka came in the end of 2015. She got the title at TakeOver Dallas. So you went in the direction of Asuka. Asuka then dominated. Then she lost the title, moved to the main roster. Then Shayna Baszler took over, took the baton. And then the NXT Women's Division's been growing and growing. And then last year was the best thing in the best women's division in all of WWE for most of the year. So yeah, that's basically the video. The women's revolution or evolution in WWE. Plenty of points outlined in this video. I wanted this to be as clear as possible and as concise as possible, because there's so many little elements to this that I want to discuss. That's why it's literally a 30-minute video. I'm going to label this the Elitist Effect, so this is going to be an Elitist Effect podcast. But yeah, literally this whole thing, I'm just going to recap this whole thing again, just really, really quickly. I know you guys are probably sick of hearing this, but if you're still here, you clearly care. So, pretty much, the women I associate with the Revolution, AJ Page and Sasha Banks, and then later on, Ronda Rousey, those are who I associate it with, but WWE push political agenda, they push mainstream headlines, they push women's first time ever, despite the fact that the stories and the creative is not interesting. They push Charlotte Flair, and Charlotte Flair, and Charlotte Flair, and Becky Lynch to a lesser extent, okay? They push that more than anything, okay? They've gone away, understandably, from the far-right direction of women stripping on the show and being raunchy. They go to the more, the family-friendly, the representation, the this is hope. They go in that direction, but it's just not good, because WWE creative sucks, okay? So that's what the basis of this whole video has been about. The women's evolution in WWE. Guys, leave down below. If you made it this far, what do you think of the women's evolution in WWE? Have you enjoyed it at all? What's been your favourite part? Have you had a favourite match of the women's evolution in WWE? If I had to give a favourite match to the women's evolution, I'd say Becky vs. Charlotte from Evolution, no holds barred, SmackDown Women's title. That match was excellent. I think another one, Becky vs. Charlotte vs. Asuka, TLC, triple threat match for the SmackDown Women's title. That was awesome, okay? Outside of that, I'd say Sasha and Bayley from TakeOver Brooklyn. I'd say, I don't know. Definitely on the WrestleMania 35 main event, which I barely even talked about that in this video. I've talked about that in the Becky Lynch video to death, so anyway, if you feel the need to hear more about me talking about the women's evolution and revolution, feel free to watch my WWE Charlotte Flair and her Road to 17's predictable video, and my WWE Becky Lynch is like forced video, so go check them out if you want to hear more. But yeah, that's been the bonus podcast for this week. I want to talk about this women's evolution. This video has been a long time coming. I wanted to really put all my thoughts together in a way that makes you guys really think through this whole situation. I've tried to be as clear as possible. I don't know how well it's going to come off, but hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. If you have, be sure to like, comment, sub. You guys know the drill. See ya.